Before William Shakespeare was born in 1564, England was a nation in the midst of profound change. The mid-16th century marked a time when old medieval traditions clashed with new ideas brought by the Renaissance. Religious upheaval reshaped society, and political power grew more centralized under the Tudor monarchy. Into this complex, often turbulent world came a boy in the small market town of Stratford upon Avon, a place far removed from the bustle of London, yet touched by the same winds of transformation sweeping the country. Stratford was a typical English market town, built alongside the river Avon, with winding streets lined by timber-framed houses. Life there was centered on agriculture, local trade, and community rituals. Farmers tended their fields. Craftsmen like blacksmiths and weavers worked with skill, passed down through generations, and the marketplace served as the town's vibrant heart, a place where neighbors exchanged news as much as goods. Despite its rural nature, Stratford was connected enough that news, ideas, and travelers from larger cities occasionally passed through, bringing with them glimpses of a world far beyond the town's boundaries. For most people in Stratford, life was intimately tied to the cycles of nature and the church calendar. The Church of England was the center of community life, and its services and festivals marked the passage of time. Religious faith was deeply embedded in daily existence, though the Reformation had unsettled many traditional beliefs, leading to confusion and conflict. Families were typically large and close-knit, often living under one roof with multiple generations. Education was growing in importance, but remained mostly the privilege of boys from wealthier families. Grammar schools, influenced by Renaissance humanism, taught Latin and classical texts, nurturing a new generation of thinkers and writers who would eventually challenge established norms. The Renaissance, which had begun in Italy during the 14th century, was by the 16th century reaching English shores. This intellectual and artistic revival emphasized a return to the study of classical antiquity, Greek and Roman philosophy, literature, and art, and celebrated human potential and individual achievement. In England, the Renaissance inspired new ways of thinking about science, politics, and the arts. Scholars such as Thomas More and Roger Ascham advocated for education grounded in classical texts, and poets and playwrights began experimenting with forms and themes that departed from medieval traditions. The Renaissance spirit was one of curiosity, exploration, and the belief that humans could shape their own destiny through reason and creativity. The role of theater during this period was evolving rapidly. Medieval mystery plays and morality dramas, which had been performed for centuries as religious festivals, were giving way to more secular and professional productions. The rise of permanent playhouses in London, like the Theatre and later the Globe, attracted diverse audiences from all walks of life. Plays became a medium not only for entertainment, but for exploring contemporary issues, politics, religion, social order, and human psychology. Theatrical companies flourished, and playwrights gained new status as artists who could reflect and critique society through their works. The public stage became a place where the tensions of the age between old beliefs and new ideas, authority and individual freedom, played out before thousands. England's political and religious landscape was turbulent and often dangerous during Shakespeare's early years. Henry VIII's reign in the first half of the 16th century had drastically altered the country's religious fabric. His break with the Roman Catholic Church to form the Church of England not only consolidated his power, but unleashed decades of religious conflict and uncertainty. Under Henry and his successors, England swung between Protestantism and Catholicism, with each regime enforcing harsh penalties on dissenters. By the time Elizabeth I took the throne in 1558, the country was weary of religious strife, but deeply divided. Elizabeth's own reign, lasting until 1603, was marked by a careful balancing act, establishing Protestantism as the national faith, while avoiding extremes that might provoke rebellion. These religious tensions permeated all aspects of life, from politics to education to personal faith. The fear of Catholic plots, such as the later Gunpowder Plot in 1605, was ever present. The government used censorship and surveillance to control what could be said or performed publicly. In this atmosphere, theater was both a potential threat and a valued tool. It could challenge authority or reinforce it, depending on how it was wielded. Writers had to navigate these dangers skillfully, using allegory and metaphor to address controversial subjects without attracting censorship or punishment. Beyond religion, the Tudor period saw the strengthening of the monarchy and the gradual emergence of a more centralized state. Henry VIII and Elizabeth I both worked to reduce the power of the nobility and increase royal authority. This consolidation was accompanied by increased bureaucratic control, the expansion of the navy, and overseas exploration, setting the stage for England's future as a global power. The growth of London as a political and economic center attracted many ambitious individuals seeking fortune and fame, including actors and writers like Shakespeare, who would come to define the cultural landscape of the era. For a boy growing up in Stratford during these times, the world must have seemed both vast and full of contradictions. Tradition held firm in daily life, yet new ideas and upheavals crackled at the edges. Education offered a gateway to a wider intellectual world, shaped by classical wisdom and humanist thought. The theater promised a space where stories of kings, heroes, and common folk could be shared and reimagined, reflecting the hopes and fears of the age. Shakespeare's later works would embody this dynamic tension, rooted in a world on the cusp of modernity, yet still haunted by ancient beliefs and human flaws. In sum, the England that William Shakespeare was born into was a land of contradictions and transformation. Its villages, like Stratford, held tightly to community and tradition, even as the Renaissance swept through its towns and cities, reshaping art, literature, and thought. Its political and religious landscape was fraught with peril and change, compelling its artists to find new ways to speak truth while evading censorship. It was a society simultaneously fearful and hopeful, steeped in faith, yet curious about human potential. This complex, vibrant backdrop set the stage for Shakespeare's extraordinary life and legacy, a life that would come to embody the spirit of an age bridging medieval worldviews and the dawning modern era. William Shakespeare entered the world in April of 1564, baptized on the 26th of that month in the modest market town of Stratford upon Avon. His birth coincided with a period of cautious optimism in England, still under the early years of Queen Elizabeth I's rule. Though his exact birth date remains unrecorded, tradition holds that he was born on April 23rd, a date later revered as his symbolic birthday. Stratford was far from the political and cultural centers of the realm, yet it offered a nurturing environment where family ties and local customs shaped daily life. His parents, John and Mary Shakespeare, belonged to the emerging middle class of the period. John Shakespeare was a glovemaker by trade, a respected craftsman who held several civic offices in Stratford, including that of alderman and eventually bailiff, the equivalent of mayor. His position granted the family a degree of social standing, though their fortunes were variable. Mary Arden, William's mother, came from a well-to-do farming family, providing additional status and a connection to rural landed interests. Together, John and Mary raised 8 children, though not all survived infancy, a common tragedy in the 16th century. Education played an important role in young William's upbringing. He likely attended the King's New School in Stratford, a grammar school renowned for its rigorous curriculum based on classical studies. The school's focus was Latin, which was the language of scholarship, law, and religion. Mastery of Latin was essential for anyone aspiring to a learned profession, and the school day would have been long and disciplined, involving memorization of grammar rules, translation exercises, and recitation of classical texts. The works of Virgil, Ovid, Cicero, and Seneca form the foundation of this education, imparting not only language skills, but also moral and philosophical lessons. While it is unknown whether Shakespeare completed his schooling or left early, his later writings betray a deep familiarity with classical literature and rhetoric. His plays and poems display an astonishing command of mythology, history, and philosophy, suggesting that the education he received laid the groundwork for his literary genius. Beyond formal education, Stratford's proximity to theatrical traditions and traveling players may have sparked his early interest in drama. Though there is little direct evidence, the rich oral storytelling culture and periodic performances of mystery and morality plays would have provided a fertile environment for imagination. In 1582, at the age of 18, Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway, a woman 8 years his senior from a nearby village called Shottery. The circumstances surrounding their marriage remain a matter of speculation. It is thought that Anne was already pregnant at the time, prompting a quick wedding. Their first daughter, Susanna, was born 6 months later, followed by twins, Hamnet and Judith. The family's domestic life was typical of the era, humble, busy, and shaped by the rhythms of rural England. Tragically, Hamnet, Shakespeare's only son, died at the age of 11, a loss that may have influenced the emotional depth found in some of his later works. The years following his marriage, often referred to as the lost years, are shrouded in mystery. Scholars have speculated that Shakespeare may have worked as a school teacher, actor, or apprentice in various trades. Some suggest he traveled extensively, possibly even abroad, absorbing diverse cultural influences. What is clear is that by the early 1590s, he had arrived in London and begun to establish himself as a playwright and actor. This transition from provincial life to the capital was a dramatic leap, opening the door to opportunities that would shape his career and legacy. Throughout his youth, Shakespeare's experiences in Stratford, the familial bonds, the challenges of small town life, the exposure to education and local culture laid the foundation for his rich understanding of human nature. These early years infused his writing with empathy for both the common man and the noble, a grasp of social dynamics, and an appreciation for the complexity of life. The echoes of his childhood, family relationships, and community are woven throughout his works, grounding his universal themes in the particularities of his own origins. In sum, the boy from Stratford emerged from a world that was at once ordinary and extraordinary, shaped by the forces of tradition, learning, and change. His beginnings were modest but promising, marked by an education steeped in classical knowledge, a family engaged in civic life, and a community rooted in both continuity and transformation. These elements combined to prepare him for a journey that would eventually bring him from the quiet lanes of Stratford to the bustling stages of London, where his words would captivate generations to come. The period between 1585 and 1592 in William Shakespeare's life is famously known as the lost years because few records exist to shed light on what he was doing during this time. It is one of the great biographical mysteries of literary history, inspiring countless theories, speculations, and creative imaginings. What is certain, however, is that this interval was crucial, marking the gap between his youthful years in Stratford upon Avon and his sudden striking emergence on the London theatrical scene. This was a time of transition and transformation, during which Shakespeare moved from relative obscurity into the bustling cultural heart of England, preparing himself for a career that would soon redefine the art of drama. Many scholars have pieced together clues from official documents, legal records, and contemporary accounts to formulate possible scenarios for these missing years. One popular theory suggests that Shakespeare stayed close to home, perhaps teaching at a local grammar school, imparting the classical knowledge he had gained in his youth. Teaching was a common occupation for educated young men who lacked means or connections to pursue other professions, and it would have allowed Shakespeare to continue his engagement with Latin texts and classical literature. Another theory proposes that he may have worked as a tutor or assistant to a noble household, a role that could have introduced him to the upper echelons of society and exposed him to the politics and culture of the English court. Such an environment would have been fertile ground for developing the keen insight into human nature and power dynamics that would later animate his plays. More adventurous accounts suggest Shakespeare may have traveled beyond Stratford, venturing into different parts of England or even abroad. Some believe he could have been involved with acting troupes that toured the countryside, performing plays for local audiences. Exposure to the theatrical world in this way might have ignited his passion for the stage and provided practical experience with performance and storytelling. A particularly romantic but less substantiated theory imagines him as a soldier or even a poacher, perhaps fleeing legal troubles or seeking excitement beyond his provincial origins. While the truth may never be fully uncovered, these narratives all point to a period of exploration, experimentation, and self-discovery. By 1592, Shakespeare's presence in London was firmly established, as evidenced by a notable reference from the playwright Robert Greene. Greene's pamphlet, a satirical attack on rival writers, mentioned a Shakespearean upstart attempting to compete with established dramatists, a thinly veiled jab at Shakespeare himself. This public mention marks the first time Shakespeare's name entered the London literary conversation, signaling his arrival as a serious creative force. London in the late 16th century was a sprawling, crowded metropolis, a hub of commerce, politics, and culture, unlike anything Shakespeare would have known in Stratford. The city was alive with energy and opportunity, but also rife with danger and uncertainty. For a young man without noble birth or significant wealth, carving out a place in London's theatrical world required talent, courage, and shrewd social navigation. The London theater scene was vibrant but competitive. Permanent playhouses had only recently been established, replacing the earlier tradition of traveling players performing in courtyards and inns. Theaters like the Theater in the Curtain attracted audiences from all social classes, from merchants and craftsmen to nobles and royalty. Playwrights and actors worked together in closely knit companies, collaborating on productions that needed to capture the public's imagination to survive. Shakespeare's early entry into this milieu involved becoming part of one such company, the Lord Chamberlain's Men, which would later be renamed the King's Men after receiving royal patronage. As both a playwright and actor, Shakespeare quickly adapted to the demands of the stage, learning to write scripts that balanced entertainment with deeper themes, and to understand the practical realities of performance. His earliest surviving works reveal a young writer drawing heavily from a wide range of sources. Influences from classical history, mythology, and English chronicles blend with popular stories of romance and adventure. These early plays, including Henry VI and Titus Andronicus, display raw energy and ambition, even if critics have noted unevenness compared to his later masterpieces. Nonetheless, they demonstrate Shakespeare's growing confidence and skill in capturing human emotion, political intrigue, and the complexities of power. London's theatrical community provided a crucible in which Shakespeare's talents could be tested and refined. Connections with actors, patrons, and fellow writers opened doors and sparked creative exchange. Rivalries among playwrights pushed Shakespeare to innovate, helping him develop the poetic language, psychological depth, and dramatic structure that would define his work. At the same time, Shakespeare was learning to navigate the social and political landscape of Elizabethan England. Theater was closely monitored by the government, as plays had the potential to influence public opinion and incite unrest. Censorship was enforced by the master of the revels, who reviewed scripts before performance. Shakespeare became adept at embedding subtle commentary within his plays, using allegory, metaphor, and historical parallels to address contemporary issues without attracting official disfavor. This skillful balancing act reflected the precarious position of artists who depended on noble patronage and royal favor, yet sought to explore themes of power, justice, and human frailty. The transition from Stratford to London was also a personal journey for Shakespeare. Leaving behind his family and small town life, he stepped into a world filled with uncertainty, but also rich with possibility. The city's vibrant intellectual and artistic life exposed him to new ideas and challenges. He absorbed influences from classical authors rediscovered during the Renaissance, from Italian and French literature, and from the rich tapestry of English folklore and history. The cultural crossroads of London allowed Shakespeare to expand his creative horizons, blending diverse traditions into a unique dramatic voice. Though the lost years remain enigmatic, the leap Shakespeare took from provincial obscurity to metropolitan prominence set the stage for his extraordinary career. This period of relative silence in the records masks a time of intense growth and preparation. It was in these years that Shakespeare shaped his understanding of language, performance, and human nature. The experiences and lessons of the lost years echo through his early plays, hinting at the genius that was about to transform English literature forever. As Shakespeare moved into the early 1590s, his career began to take shape with a burst of creative energy that quickly distinguished him from his contemporaries. His earliest plays, though somewhat rough around the edges, revealed a young writer with an ambitious vision and a hunger to explore the complex realities of power, loyalty, and human passion. The Henry VI trilogy marked his first major dramatic achievement, chronicling the brutal wars of the English monarchy and the chaos that tore apart kingdoms and families. These historical plays demonstrated Shakespeare's ability to weave intricate plots filled with political intrigue, shifting alliances, and vivid characters. His portrayal of figures like Joan of Arc and the Duke of York captured the imagination of London audiences, hungry for stories that combined history with theatrical spectacle. Alongside the histories, Shakespeare ventured into more violent and sensational territory with Titus Andronicus, a tragedy steeped in revenge, betrayal, and horror. Though this play was often criticized by later generations for its graphic violence and melodrama, it found a receptive audience in its time. It reflected the Elizabethan appetite for bloody revenge tragedies, while also hinting at Shakespeare's developing skill in exploring psychological torment and moral complexity. The intensity of Titus Andronicus set the stage for the deeper, more nuanced tragedies he would compose later, signaling that Shakespeare was not afraid to push boundaries or shock his audience. At the same time, Shakespeare began to experiment with comedy and romance. The Two Gentlemen of Verona was among his earliest attempts to capture the lighter side of human experience, with themes of friendship, love, and jealousy. Although less polished than his later comedies, this play introduced motifs and character types, such as the witty servant and the love-struck youth, that would reappear in more sophisticated forms throughout his career. Its blend of humor and emotional conflict appealed to a broad range of viewers and showcased Shakespeare's growing versatility. Shakespeare's literary reputation was further bolstered by his foray into poetry, a medium that allowed him to reach a wider audience beyond the theater. In 1593, during a period when theaters were often closed due to outbreaks of the plague, he published Venus and Adonis, a narrative poem that became an immediate success. This richly sensual and imaginative work reinterpreted classical mythology with fresh vitality, telling the story of the goddess Venus's unrequited love for the handsome mortal Adonis. The poem's elaborate imagery, playful language, and emotional intensity captivated readers and established Shakespeare as a skilled poet alongside his theatrical endeavors. Venus and Adonis was dedicated to Henry Wriothesley, Earl of Southampton, hinting at Shakespeare's connections to influential patrons who could support his career. His growing popularity on the London stage reflected both the quality of his work and his ability to respond to the tastes of the time. Audiences were drawn to his lively characters, gripping plots, and the emotional depth that underpinned even his earliest plays. His works were performed by prominent companies, and his name became increasingly well known among theater goers and critics alike. Shakespeare's plays offered something new, a combination of entertainment and insight, spectacle and subtlety. He spoke to the hopes, fears, and contradictions of an audience living through rapid social and political change. During this period, Shakespeare's skill in blending genres and tones set him apart. He was unafraid to mix tragedy with comedy, history with romance, weaving together a tapestry of human experience that appealed to the widest possible audience. His characters were not mere types but fully realized individuals, with strengths, flaws, and contradictions that made them resonate beyond the stage. This emerging mastery of character and narrative complexity would become the hallmark of his later work. Shakespeare's rise was not only the result of his artistic gifts, but also his growing connections within the theatrical world. He cultivated relationships with actors, patrons, and fellow playwrights, navigating the competitive landscape with both ambition and savvy. His involvement with companies such as the Lord Chamberlain's Men allowed him to secure a steady platform for his plays and to participate actively in the commercial side of theater. By balancing artistic innovation with practical understanding of audience preferences, Shakespeare positioned himself for a lasting career. In essence, this early phase of Shakespeare's career was marked by rapid growth and experimentation. From the grand historical spectacles of Henry VI to the raw energy of Titus Andronicus and the playful romance of the Two Gentlemen of Verona, his works displayed a restless creativity and an expanding command of language and drama. The success of Venus and Adonis further solidified his reputation, enabling him to reach patrons and readers beyond the theater. These formative years laid the groundwork for the remarkable achievements that would follow, setting Shakespeare on the path to becoming England's most celebrated playwright. As Shakespeare's reputation grew during the mid-1590s, so too did his involvement in the practical side of the theater world. Around 1594, he became a founding member of a new acting company known as the Lord Chamberlain's Men. This troupe, named after their noble patron Henry Carey, the Lord Chamberlain, was one of several professional companies competing for audiences in London. Shakespeare's association with the company was pivotal, allowing him to develop a steady platform for his plays and to collaborate closely with a group of actors who would bring his characters to life on stage. The Lord Chamberlain's Men quickly rose in prominence, becoming known for their high-quality performances and innovative productions. The company's patronage was crucial to its success. During Elizabethan England, theater companies often relied on the support of powerful nobles who provided protection and financial backing. Henry Carey's patronage lent the Lord Chamberlain's Men a level of prestige and security, enabling them to perform regularly and attract audiences from across the social spectrum. This relationship with the aristocracy also helped Shakespeare gain access to elite circles and potential patrons, important for advancing his career and reputation. Moreover, the company enjoyed the favor of Queen Elizabeth I herself, whose court valued theatrical entertainment as a means of showcasing culture and sophistication. Performances at court were highly sought after, providing playwrights and actors with both income and prestige. In 1599, the Lord Chamberlain's Men achieved a landmark in theatrical history with the construction of the Globe Theatre. This new playhouse was built on the south bank of the River Thames, replacing an earlier venue called the Theatre, which had been dismantled due to a legal dispute. The Globe was a circular, open-air structure designed to hold thousands of spectators, featuring a thrust stage that extended into the audience, creating an intimate and dynamic viewing experience. The innovative design allowed actors to interact closely with the crowd, enhancing the drama and immediacy of performances. The Globe quickly became synonymous with Shakespeare's works, hosting premieres of many of his greatest plays and becoming a cultural institution in London. Shakespeare's role in the Lord Chamberlain's Men was multifaceted. Beyond his primary identity as a playwright, he was also an actor and a shareholder in the company. As an actor, he is believed to have performed in some of his own plays, taking on smaller roles while focusing primarily on writing. His participation on stage gave him first-hand insight into performance, helping him tailor his scripts to the practical needs and strengths of his company's actors. As a shareholder, Shakespeare held a financial stake in the company's success, sharing in the profits from ticket sales and other revenues. This business involvement was relatively unusual for playwrights of the time and provided Shakespeare with financial stability and influence within the theatrical world. The formation of the Lord Chamberlain's Men and the establishment of the Globe Theatre marked a turning point in Shakespeare's career, transforming him from a rising writer into a central figure in London's cultural life. His close collaboration with the company allowed him to experiment with new forms, refine his dramatic techniques, and produce works that appealed to diverse audiences. The combination of artistic innovation and savvy business management ensured that Shakespeare's plays reached wide audiences and endured beyond his lifetime. This period also saw Shakespeare navigating the challenges of censorship and political sensitivity. With the backing of noble patrons and royal favor, the Lord Chamberlain's Men could stage plays that engaged with controversial themes, often veiled in historical or allegorical contexts. Shakespeare's skill in embedding subtle critiques and observations within entertaining narratives helped the company maintain its success while avoiding official condemnation. His ability to balance artistic integrity with pragmatic concerns reflected his deep understanding of the complex social and political environment in which he worked. Overall, Shakespeare's involvement with the Lord Chamberlain's Men and the Globe Theatre represented a harmonious blend of creativity and commerce. The partnership provided him with a platform to shape the theatrical landscape of Elizabethan England and to secure his legacy as one of the greatest playwrights in history. The Globe itself became a symbol of this golden age of English drama, a place where Shakespeare's words and characters came alive and continue to resonate centuries later. The middle years of Shakespeare's career are often referred to as his golden period, a time when his dramatic genius fully blossomed and he produced some of the most enduring works in the English language. Between the late 1590s and early 1600s, Shakespeare crafted tragedies that explored the depths of human nature, the complexities of power, and the fragility of the human mind. These plays, including Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, Macbeth, and Julius Caesar, marked a profound evolution in his writing style and thematic ambition, setting new standards for theatrical storytelling. Hamlet, often considered Shakespeare's masterpiece, delves into themes of revenge, madness, mortality, and moral uncertainty. The Prince of Denmark's famous soliloquies reveal a mind wrestling with doubt, grief, and the burden of action. Shakespeare's use of language in Hamlet is rich and layered, blending poetic beauty with psychological insight. The play's intricate plotting and multifaceted characters challenged audiences to contemplate the nature of existence and the consequences of indecision. Its impact on both contemporary and later viewers was immense, securing Shakespeare's reputation as a playwright capable of profound philosophical exploration. Othello presents a tragic tale of jealousy, trust, and manipulation. The story of a noble Moorish general, undone by the deceit of his envious subordinate, Iago, captures the destructive power of suspicion and the vulnerabilities inherent in love and identity. Shakespeare's portrayal of Othello's inner turmoil and Iago's cunning villainy reveals a keen understanding of human psychology and social prejudice. The play's tension and emotional intensity gripped audiences, while its complex characters sparked debate and reflection. King Lear explores the devastating consequences of pride, betrayal, and madness within a royal family torn apart by ambition and misunderstanding. The aging king's descent into madness and despair, coupled with the loyalty and cruelty of his daughters, paints a bleak yet powerful picture of human frailty and the search for redemption. Shakespeare's language in King Lear is both raw and poetic, capturing the tragic grandeur of a world unraveling. The play's exploration of family dynamics and justice resonated deeply with audiences, affirming Shakespeare's ability to probe universal themes. Macbeth offers a dark meditation on ambition, power, and guilt. The rise and fall of the Scottish lord, driven by prophecy and spurred to murder by his wife, unfolds in a tense and atmospheric narrative filled with supernatural elements. Shakespeare's use of stark imagery, rhythmic language, and chilling soliloquies creates an intense psychological drama. The play's exploration of moral decay and the corrupting influence of unchecked desire struck a chord with viewers and has remained a staple of the theatrical canon. Julius Caesar dramatizes political intrigue and betrayal in ancient Rome, focusing on the assassination of Caesar and the subsequent chaos. Themes of loyalty, honor, and the struggle for power are woven through vivid speeches and dynamic interactions. Shakespeare's portrayal of public and private conflict highlights the complexities of leadership and the consequences of political violence. The play's enduring popularity reflects its relevance to audiences concerned with governance and human ambition. Throughout this golden period, Shakespeare innovated not only in content, but also in language and structure. He expanded the possibilities of blank verse, mastering the rhythmic flexibility needed to convey character and emotion. His use of soliloquies allowed audiences direct access to a character's inner thoughts, creating intimacy and depth rarely seen on stage before. Shakespeare's blending of genres, mixing tragic elements with moments of humor and poetic lyricism, broadened the appeal of his plays and challenged theatrical conventions. Audience reception during this time was overwhelmingly positive, with Shakespeare's plays performed regularly by the Lord Chamberlain's Men at the Globe and other venues. His works attracted a diverse crowd, from the nobility and royalty who appreciated their sophistication to common citizens drawn by their compelling stories and relatable characters. Critical acclaim grew steadily, with contemporaries praising his skill in capturing the complexities of the human experience. His influence extended beyond the stage, inspiring poets, playwrights, and thinkers across England and Europe. This golden period solidified Shakespeare's status not merely as an entertainer, but as a profound observer of humanity. His tragedies, in particular, challenged audiences to confront uncomfortable truths about ambition, identity, morality, and the nature of power. By pushing the boundaries of dramatic form and linguistic expression, Shakespeare elevated English theater to new heights, leaving a legacy that continues to shape the art of storytelling. In addition to his groundbreaking work for the stage, Shakespeare made a profound impact through his poetic contributions, most notably his collection of 154 sonnets, published in 1609. These sonnets offered a different, but equally powerful avenue for exploring the human condition, allowing Shakespeare to delve into personal and philosophical themes with a concentrated intensity. Unlike his plays, which unfolded in dramatic narrative, the sonnets compressed emotion and thought into 14-line poems that combined formal structure with linguistic innovation. This collection not only enriched the English literary tradition, but also revealed a more intimate and reflective side of Shakespeare's genius. The sonnets revolve around major themes that continue to resonate with readers centuries later. Time is a pervasive concern, with Shakespeare frequently meditating on its relentless passage and the way it erodes beauty, youth, and life itself. He wrestled with the desire to preserve the fleeting moments of existence against the inevitability of aging and decay. Beauty, often portrayed through the figure of a beloved, is another central theme. Shakespeare's poems celebrate physical and spiritual beauty, but also acknowledge its fragility and vulnerability to time's effects. Love, in its many forms, romantic, unrequited, idealized, and flawed, forms the emotional core of the sonnets. Shakespeare captures love's joy and pain, its power to elevate and to wound, with a remarkable balance of passion and subtlety. Immortality emerges as a hopeful antidote to mortality, as Shakespeare suggests that poetry itself can grant eternal life by preserving the essence of the beloved beyond physical death. The identities of the sonnet's subjects remain shrouded in mystery, fueling centuries of speculation and debate. The fair youth, to whom many of the early sonnets are addressed, is depicted with deep affection and admiration, inspiring themes of friendship, desire, and complex emotional entanglement. The poet's relationship with this young man is layered with devotion, jealousy, and longing, capturing a profound intimacy that transcends time. Later sonnets introduce the enigmatic dark lady, whose allure and betrayal evoke passion and torment. This figure contrasts with the idealized beauty of the fair youth, adding complexity and tension to the collection. The ambiguous nature of these characters invites readers to explore the sonnets as a window into Shakespeare's personal experiences, or as allegories of universal human relationships. Shakespeare's influence on poetic form through his sonnets cannot be overstated. While the Shakespearean sonnet follows a structured rhyme scheme and meter, he demonstrated remarkable flexibility within this framework, bending language and rhythm to suit emotional nuance and dramatic effect. His use of metaphor, wordplay, and inventive imagery elevated the sonnet beyond a rigid exercise, transforming it into a dynamic vehicle for personal expression. This approach inspired generations of poets who sought to emulate his mastery of both form and content. Moreover, Shakespeare's sonnets expanded the possibilities of English poetry, showing how formal constraints could coexist with deep emotional resonance and intellectual complexity. The publication of the sonnets in 1609 came at a time when Shakespeare's theatrical output was still flourishing, adding another dimension to his literary legacy. These poems offered readers a chance to engage with his work in a quieter, more contemplative manner, revealing themes and concerns that paralleled those in his plays, but with a focus on individual experience and introspection. The sonnets' enduring popularity reflects their universal appeal, touching on desires and fears that remain relevant across cultures and epochs. In the broader scope of literary history, Shakespeare's sonnets stand as a testament to his unparalleled ability to capture the essence of human emotion in tightly crafted language. They represent both a continuation and a transformation of Renaissance poetic traditions, blending classical influences with English vernacular in a way that resonated deeply with his contemporaries and later audiences. Through these sonnets, Shakespeare ensured that his voice would continue to speak across time, inviting each new generation to explore the mysteries of love, beauty, and mortality. Together with his dramatic works, the sonnets form a cornerstone of Shakespeare's enduring legacy, highlighting his versatility and profound insight into the human soul. His poetry, like his plays, transcends its historical moment, offering timeless reflections on the nature of existence and the power of art to capture and preserve life's fleeting moments. As Shakespeare's career progressed into its later years, his creative output evolved significantly, reflecting both his own maturation as a writer and the shifting tastes of his audiences. The intense tragedies and political histories that had previously defined much of his work gave way to a subtler, more reflective style, characterized by what scholars often call his romances or tragicomedies. These plays, among them The Tempest, Cymbeline, and The Winter's Tale, blended elements of tragedy and comedy in ways that allowed Shakespeare to explore themes of forgiveness, reconciliation, renewal, and the mysterious workings of fate and grace. Unlike his earlier works that often dwelled on human folly and destruction, these later plays offer a tone that is at once more compassionate and more mystical, revealing a playwright grappling with the complexities of human nature and the possibilities of redemption. The Tempest, generally regarded as Shakespeare's final solo play, stands out as a profound meditation on power, art, and forgiveness. Set on a remote, enchanted island, it tells the story of Prospero, a wronged duke who wields magic to restore order and reconcile with his enemies. The play's atmosphere is suffused with wonder, and its lyrical language evokes the beauty and mystery of the natural and supernatural worlds. Prospero's journey from vengeance to mercy has often been interpreted as Shakespeare's own farewell to the theater and his art, with the final scene's renunciation of magic symbolizing the closing of a creative chapter. The themes of colonization, authority, and reconciliation, woven into the narrative, also reflect broader social and political concerns of the early 17th century, underscoring Shakespeare's enduring engagement with the world around him. Following The Tempest, Cymbeline and The Winter's Tale continued to develop Shakespeare's interest in tragic comedy, exploring human relationships fractured by jealousy, deception, and misunderstanding, but ultimately healed through forgiveness and love. Both plays are complex, featuring intricate plots with multiple twists and turns, including mistaken identities, long lost children, and dramatic reunions. The characters are drawn with a richness that captures both their flaws and their capacity for grace. These plays reflect a worldview that acknowledges human imperfection while holding on to hope for reconciliation and renewal. Shakespeare's poetic language shines in these works, blending moments of dark tension with joyous resolution and highlighting the unpredictable nature of life. This late style marked a significant departure from the raw emotional intensity and often brutal conclusions of his earlier tragedies. Instead, Shakespeare's tragicomedies invite audiences to contemplate the possibilities of healing after suffering and the ways in which love and mercy can restore order to chaos. His treatment of themes such as time's passage, loss, and forgiveness gains new depth, suggesting a personal reflection on aging and legacy. These plays also contain moments of magical realism and fantasy that provide an otherworldly dimension to the narratives, allowing Shakespeare to experiment with tone and form in innovative ways. While Shakespeare's theatrical work flourished, he began to prepare for a quieter life away from London. Over the years, he invested in property and built a comfortable estate in his native Stratford upon Avon, signaling a gradual withdrawal from the frenetic life of the city. Records indicate that by the early 1610s, Shakespeare had purchased New Place, one of the largest houses in Stratford, a testament to his financial success and social status. His return to Stratford marked a homecoming to familiar surroundings and family, including his wife Anne Hathaway and their children. This return also reflected the physical and emotional toll of decades spent immersed in the demands of writing, acting, and managing theatrical enterprises. The final years of Shakespeare's life are less well documented, leaving room for some speculation. However, it is believed that he continued writing and revising plays during this period, although the frequency of new works diminished. Some scholars suggest that health issues or a desire for rest may have influenced his reduced output. Despite stepping back from the stage, Shakespeare's influence and popularity remained strong, with his plays continuing to be performed and celebrated throughout England. William Shakespeare passed away in April 1616 at the age of 52. The exact cause of his death remains unknown, though various theories have been proposed, including illness and the cumulative effects of a strenuous life. His burial took place at Holy Trinity Church in Stratford upon Avon, where a simple yet striking epitaph inscribed on his tomb warns against disturbing his remains. This memorial has become a focal point for admirers and scholars, symbolizing the lasting respect accorded to him by his hometown. In Stratford, Shakespeare's legacy took root as the town's most celebrated figure. His birthplace became a site of pilgrimage, drawing visitors eager to connect with the origins of a literary genius. Over time, theaters, museums, and cultural institutions were established to honor his life and work, fostering an ongoing engagement with his plays and poetry. Shakespeare's connection to Stratford serves as a reminder of his journey from provincial origins to international fame, underscoring the remarkable scope of his achievements. Shakespeare's later years and final works reveal a playwright who had come to terms with life's contradictions, its suffering and joy, its chaos and order, its human failings and moments of grace. His exploration of reconciliation and forgiveness in his romances offers a poignant counterpoint to the darker themes of his earlier tragedies, suggesting a man reflecting deeply on existence and the enduring power of art. Through retirement and death, Shakespeare's presence remained vibrant, his legacy immortalized by the timelessness of his work and the universal truths it continues to express. Following Shakespeare's death in 1616, the preservation and dissemination of his vast body of work became a pressing concern for those who recognized the enduring value of his plays and poetry. Unlike many authors of his time, Shakespeare's works were not systematically published during his lifetime, and much of his legacy rested on the performances of his plays and scattered printed editions. This left his vast repertoire vulnerable to loss or fragmentation, especially as the theatrical culture of the early 17th century was largely ephemeral. It was through the determined efforts of his friends and fellow actors, particularly John Hemming and Henry Condell, that Shakespeare's works were gathered and immortalized in a single volume that would change literary history forever. Hemming and Condell, both trusted colleagues who had performed in many of Shakespeare's plays, undertook the formidable task of collecting and compiling the playwright's works into what would become known as the First Folio. Published in 1623, 7 years after Shakespeare's death, the First Folio was a monumental achievement. It contained 36 plays, including many that had never before been printed, such as Macbeth, The Tempest, and Julius Caesar. Without the First Folio, it is believed that several of Shakespeare's most famous works might have been lost to time. The volume was dedicated to Shakespeare's patrons, the Earl of Pembroke and the Earl of Montgomery, which helped to lend it prestige and encourage its circulation among the educated elite. The First Folio's significance extends beyond its role as a collection of texts. It was the first time Shakespeare's plays were presented in a systematic and authoritative form, accompanied by a preface that praised Shakespeare's genius and underscored the importance of his works to English literature. The editor's dedication and the quality of the printing ensured that the folio became a foundational document in the study of Shakespeare and English drama more broadly. Its survival and influence laid the groundwork for centuries of Shakespearean scholarship, enabling readers, actors, and academics to engage with the plays in ways that had not been possible before. The publication of the First Folio also marked the beginning of an evolving tradition of Shakespearean scholarship. Early readers and critics began to analyze, interpret, and debate the texts, exploring questions about authorship, performance, and textual variations. Over time, the folio became the primary source for countless editions, adaptations, and translations, solidifying Shakespeare's place in the literary canon. Scholars compared the folio with other quartos and printed versions, striving to establish reliable texts and understand Shakespeare's original intentions. This process of critical examination and textual editing has continued into the modern era, with ongoing discoveries and reinterpretations contributing to the dynamic field of Shakespeare studies. The impact of the First Folio extends far beyond academic circles. Its publication helped to cement Shakespeare's reputation not just as a popular playwright of his time, but as a towering figure in world literature, whose works transcend historical and cultural boundaries. The folio's role in preserving these plays has allowed generations to experience Shakespeare's language, characters, and stories, ensuring their continued relevance and vitality. The collection's influence also inspired the establishment of theatrical traditions, literary criticism, and cultural celebrations that honor Shakespeare's legacy worldwide. In essence, the First Folio represents both an act of preservation and a declaration of Shakespeare's artistic immortality. Thanks to the dedication of Hemminge, Condell, and their contemporaries, Shakespeare's works were safeguarded for posterity, enabling them to inspire millions of readers and audiences over the centuries. The folio stands as a testament to the enduring power of literature to connect past and present, revealing timeless truths about humanity through the voice of one of its greatest storytellers. William Shakespeare's unparalleled contribution to the English language stands as one of the most significant aspects of his enduring legacy. At a time when English was still evolving and less standardized than today, Shakespeare's inventive use of vocabulary, rhythm, and rhetorical devices played a transformative role in shaping the language. His works showcase not only a remarkable flair for storytelling, but also a linguistic creativity that expanded the expressive possibilities of English, enriching it with new words, phrases, and poetic techniques that continue to resonate. One of Shakespeare's most celebrated linguistic achievements is his coinage of an extraordinary number of new words and idiomatic expressions. It is estimated that he invented or popularized over 1,700 words, many of which have become integral to everyday English. Words such as assassination, bedazzled, lonely, and swagger first appeared in his texts, illustrating his talent for capturing the nuances of human experience in fresh and vivid terms. Beyond single words, Shakespeare introduced phrases that have since become staples of English speech, including break the ice, green-eyed monster, and wild goose chase. These linguistic innovations demonstrate his deep understanding of language as a living, flexible tool capable of adapting to new contexts and emotions. Central to Shakespeare's linguistic style is his masterful use of iambic pentameter and blank verse, which gave his writing a rhythmic and musical quality. Iambic pentameter, consisting of 5 pairs of alternating unstressed and stressed syllables per line, closely mirrors the natural patterns of English speech. This meter provided a versatile framework that allowed Shakespeare to convey a wide range of tones, from the solemn and introspective to the lively and comedic, while maintaining a consistent poetic rhythm. His skillful manipulation of blank verse, which is unrhymed iambic pentameter, broke with earlier poetic conventions and freed his character's speech from rigid rhyme schemes, creating more naturalistic dialogue that could flow with emotional and dramatic intensity. In addition to rhythm and meter, Shakespeare employed a rich arsenal of rhetorical devices and poetic tools that enhanced the power and beauty of his language. His plays and poems abound with metaphors, similes, personification, alliteration, and antithesis, each carefully crafted to deepen meaning and evoke vivid imagery. For example, his use of metaphor often conveyed complex emotions and abstract concepts in tangible forms, helping audiences visualize and connect with the characters' inner lives. Shakespeare's frequent use of rhetorical questions, irony, and paradox further enriched his texts, inviting reflection and highlighting contradictions within his characters and plots. These techniques contributed to the enduring appeal of his work, as they invite readers and viewers to engage actively with the language and themes. The influence of Shakespeare's linguistic innovations extends far beyond the Elizabethan era. His contributions helped to standardize and expand English vocabulary during a critical period of linguistic development, By demonstrating the expressive potential of English through his inventive wordplay and poetic structures, Shakespeare elevated the language to new artistic heights. His works have served as a foundation for countless writers, poets, and playwrights who followed, shaping the course of English literature and language education. Even today, Shakespeare's language shapes modern English in profound ways. Many phrases and words he coined remain in common usage, enriching everyday communication. His linguistic creativity continues to inspire modern writers and speakers to explore the flexibility and beauty of English. Moreover, his influence is evident in the ways that English literature and drama emphasize rhythm, metaphor, and expressive language as tools for storytelling and emotional impact. In sum, Shakespeare's language and invention represent a monumental achievement that transcends his role as a playwright. His imaginative and skilled use of English transformed it into a richer, more expressive medium, capable of capturing the complexity of human thought and feeling. Through his words, Shakespeare not only entertained, but also expanded the boundaries of language itself, leaving an indelible mark on English that continues to resonate across centuries and cultures. Shakespeare's influence extends far beyond the borders of England, reaching every corner of the globe and embedding itself in countless cultures and artistic traditions. His plays have been translated into every major language, performed on stages from New York to New Delhi, Tokyo to Johannesburg, and adapted into forms that reflect the rich diversity of human experience. This global reach speaks to the universality of Shakespeare's themes: love, power, jealousy, ambition, identity, and the profound emotional truths his works express. Across cultures and centuries, Shakespeare's stories have been continually reimagined and reinterpreted, affirming his place not only as an English playwright, but as a global cultural icon. Translations of Shakespeare's plays have played a critical role in introducing his work to international audiences. Each translation carries the challenge of capturing the nuance, rhythm, and poetic beauty of the original English text, while making it accessible and resonant in a new linguistic and cultural context. From the earliest French and German translations in the 17th and 18th centuries to modern versions in hundreds of languages, Shakespeare's words have crossed linguistic barriers to find new life. Translators often adapt or localize cultural references, enabling audiences to connect deeply with the material while preserving Shakespeare's core themes and dramatic power. Cultural adaptations provide another vibrant expression of Shakespeare's worldwide influence. The Japanese film Ran, directed by Akira Kurosawa, reimagines King Lear in the context of samurai culture, blending Shakespeare's tragic narrative with Japanese aesthetics and social values. Similarly, Bollywood cinema has embraced Shakespeare's works, adapting plays like Romeo and Juliet into vibrant musical dramas that resonate with Indian audiences. In Africa, artists have created retellings of Shakespeare's plays that explore post colonial identities and local traditions, using the plays as lenses to address contemporary social and political issues. These adaptations highlight Shakespeare's flexibility as a storyteller, capable of transcending time and place to engage diverse audiences through culturally specific interpretations. Beyond the stage and screen, Shakespeare's influence permeates education, politics, and popular culture worldwide. His plays and sonnets are a foundational part of curricula in schools and universities, where students analyze his language, themes, and characterizations as part of broader literary and historical studies. Shakespeare's works also serve as vehicles for political discourse. His exploration of power, justice, and human nature has been invoked in debates and movements across the globe, demonstrating the enduring relevance of his insights. In popular culture, Shakespeare's influence is evident in countless books, films, television shows, and music that reference or reinterpret his characters and stories. From modern retellings of Romeo and Juliet to parodies of Hamlet's famous soliloquy, This global presence has elevated Shakespeare from a national literary figure to a universal symbol of human creativity and insight. His plays' capacity to speak to fundamental human experiences has allowed them to be adopted and adapted in myriad ways, reflecting the diverse voices and traditions of the world's cultures. Shakespeare's works continue to inspire artists, scholars, and audiences, fostering cross cultural dialogue and expanding the boundaries of theatrical and literary expression. In this way, Shakespeare occupies a unique position as both a product of his English Renaissance context and a timeless storyteller who belongs to the world. His global influence underscores the power of art to transcend geographic, linguistic, and cultural divides, inviting people everywhere to explore the depths of the human experience through his enduring words and characters. For centuries, William Shakespeare's name has been synonymous with literary genius, but his authorship has also been surrounded by controversy and debate. Questions have arisen about whether the man from Stratford upon Avon actually wrote the vast and complex body of work attributed to him. This authorship debate has sparked numerous theories, alternative candidates, and a rich mythology that continues to fascinate scholars, historians, and enthusiasts alike. The discussion touches on issues of identity, class, education, and the nature of creativity, revealing the enduring mystery that surrounds one of history's greatest writers. The traditional view holds that Shakespeare, the actor and businessman from Stratford, was indeed the author of the plays and sonnets that bear his name. However, skepticism emerged in the 19th century, fueled by doubts about Shakespeare's limited formal education and lack of documented literary training. Critics argued that such profound knowledge of law, foreign languages, classical literature, and courtly life seemed unlikely to come from a provincial playwright. This skepticism gave rise to alternative authorship theories that proposed other figures as the true creators of Shakespeare's works. Among the most prominent candidates are Francis Bacon, the philosopher and statesman, Edward de Vere, the Earl of Oxford, and Christopher Marlowe, a contemporary playwright who some claim faked his death. Advocates for Bacon suggest that his education, political background, and literary skills align with the erudition displayed in the plays. The Oxfordian theory posits that Edward de Vere, a nobleman with a courtly upbringing, had the literary talent and personal experience to craft Shakespeare's works, and that he used the name Shakespeare as a pseudonym to conceal his authorship. These theories often rely on circumstantial evidence, coded messages in the texts, or interpretations of historical events, but lack definitive proof. The myth of Shakespeare as an uneducated playwright is itself a complex narrative. While it is true that Shakespeare's formal schooling likely ended in his early teens, the curriculum at the King's New School in Stratford would have been rigorous, focusing heavily on Latin, classical authors, rhetoric, and drama. Furthermore, the theatrical world provided a vibrant environment for learning, collaboration, and exposure to a wide range of ideas. Shakespeare's contemporaries acknowledged his skill and originality, and he was well integrated into London's literary and theatrical communities. The idea of an illiterate or obscure figure secretly producing such masterpieces under another's name tends to underestimate the social mobility and talent possible in Elizabethan England. The historical context of the authorship debate also reflects broader cultural and social dynamics. The rise of the bard's myth coincided with evolving ideas about authorship, genius, and the ownership of creative work. In earlier periods, plays were often collaborative, and authorship was less rigidly defined than it is today. Additionally, the English Renaissance valued both the classical ideal of the educated writer and the practical skill of the professional playwright, roles that Shakespeare uniquely embodied. The debate also touches on issues of class and classism, as some theories imply that a commoner could not have produced works of such depth and complexity, reflecting modern biases projected onto the past. Despite the controversy, The majority of Shakespearean scholars support the traditional attribution, citing documentary evidence such as contemporary references, published quartos bearing his name, and the involvement of his acting company in the production of his plays. The authorship debate, however, has contributed to a richer understanding of the cultural and historical milieu in which Shakespeare lived and worked. It encourages ongoing research and discussion about creativity, collaboration, and the transmission of literary heritage. In conclusion, the myths and theories surrounding Shakespeare's authorship are as compelling as the plays themselves, revealing the deep fascination people hold for the bard's life and works. While definitive answers may remain elusive, the debate underscores the enduring power of Shakespeare's legacy and the timeless questions about the nature of genius and artistic creation that his work continues to inspire. William Shakespeare's enduring impact on literature, culture, and society is a testament to the timeless power of his work. More than 4 centuries after his death, he remains an essential figure whose stories, characters, and themes continue to resonate deeply across generations and cultures. Shakespeare's ability to explore universal human experiences, love, jealousy, ambition, betrayal, forgiveness, and the quest for meaning, ensures that his works are as relevant today as they were in Elizabethan England. His plays and poetry speak to the complexities of the human soul, making him not only a cornerstone of English literature, but a global cultural icon whose influence transcends time and place. Modern reinterpretations of Shakespeare's works demonstrate their extraordinary adaptability and ongoing vitality. His plays have been reimagined in countless forms, from blockbuster films to television series, novels, and even graphic novels, each bringing fresh perspectives and new context to his timeless stories. Directors and artists continually find innovative ways to present Shakespeare to contemporary audiences, using diverse cultural lenses and modern settings to explore the enduring themes embedded in his texts. Productions like Baz Luhrmann's Romeo-Juliet or Julie Taymor's Titus showcase how Shakespeare's works can be transformed to speak to modern sensibilities while retaining their poetic and dramatic power. Moreover, adaptations in different languages and traditions highlight Shakespeare's universal appeal and the global nature of his legacy. Tributes and festivals celebrating Shakespeare's life and work occur around the world, underscoring the deep admiration and respect he commands. The annual Shakespeare Festival in Stratford-upon-Avon draws visitors from across the globe who come to honor the bard in his hometown. Other cities, including London, New York, and Tokyo, host Shakespearean performances, workshops, and academic conferences that engage diverse audiences and scholars. These events serve not only to entertain, but to educate and inspire new generations, fostering a continued appreciation for the bard's contributions to art and culture. Public monuments, museums, and institutions dedicated to Shakespeare further cement his place in cultural memory, providing spaces where people can explore the richness of his work and its historical significance. The timeless nature of Shakespeare's characters and stories is central to his immortality. Figures such as Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, and Juliet embody archetypes of human emotion and conflict that remain relevant and compelling. Their struggles with identity, morality, love, and power continue to reflect the challenges faced by people today. Shakespeare's insight into human psychology and his ability to give voice to complex emotions ensure that his characters feel real and relatable, transcending the centuries that separate modern audiences from their original performances. The narratives Shakespeare crafted provide endless opportunities for interpretation and reflection, allowing each generation to find meaning and inspiration anew. In this way, Shakespeare's legacy endures not just through texts and performances, but through the ongoing dialogue his works inspire between the past and present. His art invites us to confront fundamental questions about humanity, society, and ourselves, reminding us that despite changing times, the core of human experience remains constant. As long as there are stories to tell and emotions to explore, Shakespeare will remain an immortal figure whose voice continues to echo through the ages. Thank you for joining this exploration of William Shakespeare's life, work, and lasting impact. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Bard's world, please like this video and subscribe to History Release for more fascinating journeys through history. Your support helps keep these stories alive and ensures you won't miss out on any future chapters of history's greatest tales.